Yoshi's Woolly World came out in October of 2015 in North America, to reasonable success. It was developed by Goodfeel, the same studio that brought us Kirby's Epic Yarn. The game was received with mixed reviews, ranging from 6s to 9s, with an aggregate 78 out of 100 on Metacritic. The gameplay and story is what you'd expect from an average Yoshi's Island game, complete with the usual Yoshi enemies, Yoshi settings, and mechanics. The evil Kamek has turned all of the Yarn Yoshis into piles of yarn for Baby Bowser, because of course that's what he'd do. It's up to Yoshi, as Yarn, to go eat yarn enemies and shoot eggs, which are yarn, to get through platforming levels made of yarn, and fix things with yarn. Yoshi's Island, the first game in this series, and the one which made follow-ups like Yoshi's Story and Yoshi's New Island have some sort of demand, is still played in speedruns, and for fun to this day, and is considered a pinnacle of Super Nintendo days for most who play it, an island of fun in the era that brought so many of our favorite games to life. So it stands to reason that any Yoshi's Island-like game would have to stand out of the shadow of its predecessor. And so many of the titles that have tried have failed. In fact, I can't think of a single one that's considered to have lived up to Yoshi's Island. Does Yoshi's Woolly World buck the trend and deliver the same caliber of platforming as that nigh-mythical Yoshi's Island? Well, I'll skip ahead in the review a little and just tell you, no. No, it doesn't. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have good platforming, nor does it mean it doesn't have its own charm, which oozes from every single pixel of this yarn-knitted world. Now, visually, this game is a gem. Handcrafted things are kind of in gaming right now. The platformer Unraveled did well, Kirby's Epic Yarn still gets a mention, and Little Big Planet went crazy with the aesthetic. This game is no different. The ground squishes, patches of cloth fly off the screen, and everything you see is yarn-themed. This game pretty much is a living diorama of yarn and crafts, and the logic of yarn rules. Tying things up with yarn balls, eating fire because it's actually yarn, unraveling blocks of the landscape, and pushing aside the walls because they're swatches of cloth are basic things in this game. Woolly World fits right into this era of artisanally crafted gaming things like an amiibo-compatible jumbo plushie in a toy store filled with plushies. On sale only at Toys R Us. Speaking of amiibos, this game plays straight into the amiibo craze with its own multicolored plush knit Yoshis. Even the loading screen has them on it, bouncing and hopping like little promotions for more amiibos to collect. Woolly World plays well in its yarn setting, with yarn Yoshis turning into yarn everything else. Yarn half Yoshi half segways, yarn balls, and just yarn. The worlds themselves are yarn boxes and knits, rendered in glorious HD as well as the Wii U can muster, and the game itself plays well on both the big screen and the little Wii U gamepad. Any way you play it, the yarn details are clear, patches and thread are everywhere, the colors are vibrant, and the whole game shines with direct, primary colory blocky goodness that shouts Nintendo with 4 exclamation points at you, like a good Nintendo game should. Yes, all is well in the world of Wool. Get past the patch and thread menus, and the kick-ass mellow guitar music starts playing. Let's have a listen to that music. The whole game is like this. Relaxed, mellow, and just kinda chilled out overall. Anyway, doing things with yarn is the main theme of the game, and it executes on that in some amazing and not so amazing ways. For example, in one world, you have to lure chomps made of clacking wireframe around the course, covering them in your yarn eggs to turn them into balls, and eating back the yarn to make them into bouncing chomps again. This back and forth is used to some good effect to make puzzles involving swapping the chomp to get it to follow you through the level. It's a good gimmick for a fun level. But then there's another world where you'll find the great level gimmick is waves. The ground undulates, and you have to wait for it to move. Yeah, it's not that amazing. In fact, this whole game is so fuzzy and pretty and undemanding that the first world or so feels like a stroll through levels. If you have any difficulty, don't worry. You can use the bits you pick up throughout the game to buy patches to make the game easier, with options like all large yarn balls, all you can eat watermelon, and just plain skipping the level. But if you somehow keep dying over and over again, the game will eventually remind you of its most mellowest of options, Mellow Mode. Yes, in the most obvious nod to its feel-good atmosphere, this game lets you fly indefinitely through the air while Yoshi hums contentedly. For some of the levels, a patch can help you get over that one little hump you've been pushing at for the last while. At the very least, they're all totally optional. This game gently reminds you, after a few deaths, that it's there, and leaves you alone otherwise. It's like a good roommate who's better than you at the game, but leaves you alone until they see you're struggling, then nudges you to remind you that they could beat it for you if you wanted, but only if you want them to. Then they go off and play more mellow guitar music. Speaking of roommates, this game has a co-op mode. Like most modern platformers with co-op, it's robust enough to allow both players to do their thing, but has camera issues if you aren't cooperating as much as trying to throw one another around. If you're a fan of the previous Yoshi titles, it's worth a look at this game. If you're looking for a feel-good title in the same vein as Kirby's Epic Yarn, you'll definitely find it here. But if you're looking for stiff difficulty in your platforming, you won't find it here. Like the squishy stuff the characters are made of, this game is bright, comfortable, and forgiving, and very much proud of it.